by Adam Scher. Adam, how you doing? How was the weekend?
Doing good. Excited for a new week. DFS wise, the weekend wasn't that great, but it was a relaxing weekend. Got some football drafts in, which is unusual for me. How
Yeah,
was yours?
no, yeah, it was good outside of DFS. I mean, it didn't do well there, but that's baseball. What kind of NFL drafts were you doing? Like season long?
I was doing NFFC like season long cut lines and online championship drafts.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into like any of that stuff. I've always wanted to. I see all the best ball talk on Twitter and stuff like that, but never really been a part of it. Mostly because I'm playing every MLB slate I can. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, it seems like interesting stuff.
yeah, it's fun. I always say that I'm going to do more of it, and then when it comes time to start prepping for it, I never do it.
Yeah, that's like me with NFL DFS. I would say gonna start like researching earlier in the week, and then Saturday night comes along, Sunday morning comes along, and then I finally start looking at everything. Um, but we've got a 9 game MLB slate. Of course, you guys are gonna want to check out Yahoo. That is our presenting sponsor. I've got the lobby for the MLB contest today pulled up for Yahoo. Of course, we want to highlight their no management fee tournament, $3, $4,500 pool, $500 to first. Some of our subs lately have been really, really enjoying this tournament. And how could you not? I mean, no management fee. You're just not going to find a better MLB tournament today. So, of course, you're going to want to get in this. And when you do, use the promo code AWESEMO if you want more information about how to get $30 of Yahoo Sports rewards points. Feel free to check out Emacs Spotlight Hitters article on the site. It's in one of the top 2 or 3 paragraphs, and follow those directions to get some free play on Yahoo. And then Josh's Spotlight Pitchers is out. We'll have cheat sheets, all the normal free content, and of course, not Lofty today. Actually, Adam, you will be doing the deep dive write up, so
Yep.
you'll be get to talk. You'll be talking about pitchers all day today.
Yeah, it's going to be a really really fun day.
Yeah, gotta get those Wade Miley takes and Marco Gonzalez and all these expensive pitchers. Uh, Real quick, wanted to talk about the big tournament that happened this weekend over on DraftKings, the live final, and not a super great showing. I think for what people consider a lot of the top pros, but more like cash game style players, it looks like tended to do well in this because if you just look at the exposures here and how people performed, you had the top, let's see, four players in ownership score 20 or more fantasy points, and that's usually going to lead to more chalky players doing well. So, is there anything you saw that stuck out to you in this tournament outside of just chalk going nuts?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it pulled up on. There it is. I couldn't find it. But yeah, it was. I had said to people that I was. Well, I mean, not glad that I wasn't there, but I know that I wouldn't have done well. It definitely was with the way the slate played out. You saw, for the most part, cash players do well and inexperienced players do well, because they went into it looking to just play like the best, the top projected plays, and that's what happened. Like, that's what came through. But it kind of reinforces, like, if you go through the leaderboard, it reinforces why there's such an emphasis on being different in your lineups. Like, obviously, for the people that came in at the top with their Colorado and Milwaukee stacks, it worked out great because they just happened to beat out the other Colorado and Milwaukee stacks that were there. But like, there's nothing you can do to like guarantee that happens for you. But you have people, in the bottom half of the top 10 that didn't really get paid that well, even though they were still on, the 2 best stacks, and it's because everyone was playing the same players. So it just reinforces that it's so much easier to get first place if you put yourself in a position to be away from the field in some way.
Yeah. So looking at Alex's lineup, obviously Alex's lineups, he's more of a contrarian player, at least with part of his lineup. He'll play chalky stacks all the time, but you look at the differentiation in all of his lineups. He had a San Francisco 5-man, a San Diego 5-man, Miami 4-man, Dodgers 4-man, Boston 4-man as his main stacks. So he didn't have any Miami. He had no Milwaukee either, at least stacks. And just a few Colorado players, more like a one-off So he went basically away from the field. I think that's the right play. And obviously he knows exactly what he's doing, but didn't work out on this slate. I was going to ask you if you were building one lineup for this, you already answered my question, but you wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to Milwaukee, at least, and Colorado, maybe to one of those teams, right?
Right. They definitely wouldn't have been together. Looking at Yodokow had 2 entries, and one was a 5-man Milwaukee stack, but he had Minnesota as the other stack. And then the other was a 5-man Washington stack with a 3-man Colorado. Like, I may have done something like that because Milwaukee and Colorado were both, obviously really, really good stacks. I know for that slate in general, I was underweight on Milwaukee because they were so popular. I think I was around the field on Colorado. So maybe would have done something like that, but there's no chance I would have had Milwaukee and Colorado together.
Yeah. So I think really frustrating for some of the tournament players that play super contrarian styles, because this small field tournament where the chalk gets even more concentrated at the top oftentimes sort of plays to their strengths better. But in order to get a sample size, this is going to happen once every few live finals where the chalk just goes nuts, and you're just gonna lose on all your entries, even if you have max it out with 5. So kind of a tough one, I think, for a lot of the top players, but congrats to these guys. I mean, the winning lineup, he didn't have anyone over or under 12% ownership, and then only 2 guys under 20%. So basically played full chalk with one of his lineups. The other one was a Twins Padres stack, so that was a little bit more off the map. But yeah, got it done with 2 entries. So congrats to Cosa Special and a bunch of familiar names in this tournament. But yeah, I'm also glad I wasn't there because there's no way. Well, first of all, I didn't even try to qualify, but there's no way I would have got to Colorado, Milwaukee with one lineup. It just wouldn't have worked out well based on how I grade lineups out.
Yep, same here. It would have been a lot of drinking heavily and bitching about the way the slate was going.
All right, let's get into this slate. We've got 9 games, not a lot of great pitching options, but that's going to make ownership even more important. We do have ownership on the site right now. Already done a couple updates, and nothing crazy sticking out at the top. I think the premier arm is going to be Bauer, so we'll talk about him in a second. But let's start with the Nationals and the Pirates. We've got Joe Ross going up against Trevor Williams. Ross at 6,900, Williams 5,900, 5.3 implied total here for the Nats, 4.8 for the Pirates. Probably a couple guys based on the pricing that we're looking at today, at least on DraftKings, where we're going to have some interest in one or possibly both of these guys. Does either one stick out to you as an option in play here?
Sorry, trying to get that game pulled up now. All right, there it goes. But on the Baltimore game, right?
No, the Nats Pirates.
No, Nats Pirates, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, it's tough because they're cheap, so I could see getting there. But tough matchup for both guys. Washington doesn't have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. Trevor Williams, not a great strikeout pitcher. 5,900 though, he's decent enough. And then Pittsburgh also not a great strikeout lineup. More left-handed bats than righties, which is a problem for Joe Ross as well. So if I had to go to one guy, I think it would be Williams, but I wouldn't have much confidence in either one.
Yeah, I think Williams, just because of the price, kind of tougher to pay almost $7K for Joe Ross when you've got an option a few $100s more that's just a better pitcher and in a better spot, even with the ownership. Talking about McKay, but yeah, I mean, I think Williams is certainly going to be a guy I get to. He's a guy that I always get surprised that I get to because when he's priced down here, because he's not a really good fantasy pitcher even, but when he's priced this way, he's a guy who can go 6-7 innings at times and be okay. So that's basically what I'm looking for here for Williams. Not wild about it because there's a big total going against him and it's hot in Pittsburgh. But he's probably the guy that I'm going to get to more often than Joe Ross. What about bats here? You mentioned lefties you might have some interest in against Joe Ross.
Yeah, throughout his career, he's really had issues in that particular split. Lefties have hit him well. So far this year, in a small sample, he's allowed a 4.11 WOBA. Since 2017, in a bigger sample, a 386 WOBA, 208 ISO. So I think that looking to, I think Adam Frazier's a really good value option. But I think that the rest of the Pirates are expensive enough, especially Reynolds and Bell, that maybe you don't get a ton of ownership there, but there is upside. Colin Moran almost never has ownership. He's a nice value option. So I could see getting into some Pittsburgh stacks, especially because behind Ross, it seems like even though they made bullpen additions, the Nats bullpen is still giving up monster games pretty much every night.
Yeah, I think I do like the Pirates a little bit more than the Nats as well. At least as a full stack, kind of a good mix of value and expensive guys with Bell, Marte, and Reynolds up near the top. But those are the guys that I'm looking to play the most. So I like the call on Moran as well. And then it's just the normal guys for me for the Nats, probably Soto, Matt Adams, assuming he's in for 4,200. Yeah, that's not super appealing to me, I don't think, unless Williams all of a sudden becomes a very chalky option. And they're pretty tough to get to on Yahoo. First four hitters in the Nats projected lineup, all $20 or more. You're still seeing some value over on the Pirates on Yahoo as well. Anything more you want to talk about before we move it on?
No, I don't think so. Pretty much bats, and then if you happen to get to some cheap Trevor Williams, then so be it.
All right, let's go to Kansas City and Baltimore. We've got Jorge Lopez going up against John Means. $4,800 Jorge Lopez against Baltimore. Do you see yourself getting there? $25 on Yahoo, Min's salary over there too.
Probably not a lot. For one, he's not very good, but for two, not really stretched out either. He's thrown
Threw 44 last time.
What did you say?
I think he threw 44 pitches last time.
Yeah, 44, the 54 the time before that. I'm not sure if he was at his last time pitching in the majors was August 8th. So I don't know if maybe he was at AAA for a start, pulling that up now. But no, he wasn't. So just not fully stretched out. Baltimore's a favorable matchup, but it's not like it's not like they're the Tigers or something like that. You do have some quality hitters with VR, Mancini. Nunez has power. Santander has been hitting well this season and doesn't strike out a lot. DJ Stewart doesn't strike out a ton. It's not the worst lineup. They have a 5.5 implied run total. I don't think I'll really get to Jorge Lopez. It would be different if I thought that he could throw 100 pitches. Maybe he just kind of gets there based on innings pitched, but I don't think that's the case. If I were to go to any pitching here, I think I have more interest in Means, and I don't have a ton of interest in him either.
Yeah, 6,400 for Means, kind of in that same mold for me as Trevor Williams. He is a favorite, though, minus 130 about right now. For Means, still healthy implied totals on both sides. I'm guessing Alex is going to have both these teams over 5, so you're probably looking at more valuable hitting options. Is this price right? Nicky Lopez is not in the projected lineup, but we've got 2,800 up on the screen, so he's not projected to go. But looking at this Baltimore team, just based on implied total and some of the prices here, you got Jace Peterson at 3,700, Stewart 31, Nunez at 4K, Santander at 4,100, and then VR usually priced way up when Baltimore's in a favorable matchup, just at 4,500. Do you like Baltimore as a full stack here?
Yeah, I do, as long as they're not getting too much ownership. It's never a team where I really want to roster them if they're popular, just because probability-wise they don't come through that often because they're not that good. But I do like the matchup. I like the park. I like the price tags. I mean, VR is a stolen base threat. He has power. Mancini's a good hitter. Nunez has power. Santander is fine. DJ Stewart is essentially free, and he really shouldn't be. So I do like Baltimore. I think they're a nice combination of upside and value.
Yeah, me too. They were one that stuck out to me as one of the better value stacks on the day. Means right now getting 11% ownership on DraftKings. I think that's about right. I'd be interested if he stuck around there in the 10 to 15% range, especially when you look at some other pitchers in his range that are getting more or as much ownership or around the same. I don't know. I think Means is a fine play here. And I think KC is going to be really, really tough to get to, at least on DraftKings. Merrifield, Soler, and Dozier, 51, 55, and 5,400. The rest of the guys are pretty cheap. You see yourself getting to any KC here?
It's pretty tough. Like, the guys that you want are obviously Merrifield, Dozier, Soler, and then you can throw Chesler Cuthbert in there too. Cuthbert's affordable, so maybe some of him, but it's just really tough to pay those price tags for, Merrifield, Dozier, and Soler, regardless of, how good they are individually, because they're still on a Kansas City team that doesn't project to score a ton of runs. John Means hasn't been terrible this year, only a 17% strikeout percentage against righties, but he's held them to a 163 expected ISO, 317 expected WOBA, has a really, really good changeup, one of the better changeups in baseball. So it's not surprising that he's been decent at, limiting right-handed production, even though he doesn't strike them out a ton. So I think it's really tough to pay all the way up there.
Yeah, I think so too. And KC not getting a lot of ownership, Merrifield getting his usual, double digits against the lefty, but O'Hearn is the guy that's the highest owned right now in DraftKings, and that's just because he's $2,900 and expected to bat fifth or sixth here. But this game, I think, going a little bit under-owned right now. I'm interested to see if once people start building their lineups, if this one shoots up on our ownership. But right now, nothing crazy. So I really like Baltimore here. Anything more we should talk about before we move it on?
Nope.
San Diego and Cincinnati. We've got Eric Lauer going up against Trevor Bauer. Lauer versus Bauer. Josh would have fun with that, I'm sure.
Yes, he would.
4 implied total here for the Padres. 5.1 for Trevor Bauer and the Reds. Is Bauer the number one option today?
For sure on Yahoo at $47 and FanDuel at 10.2K. 11.7 on DraftKings. He's my highest projected pitcher, and I think it's a great spot. I think that he's good and everything. It's still $11,700 for a pitcher that I assume will also be popular. So I'm happy with any Bauer I get to, but on DraftKings, they at least have him at a price point where you have to start to think twice.
Yeah, I like that they're at least making you make a choice here with Bauer. You can't just jam him in for 10K like we've seen some of these guys, like Chris Sale, oftentimes, where he's the best pitcher on the slate by a good margin, and he's also not priced appropriately. So looking at Bauer's ownership across the board on DraftKings, the most chalky pitcher at 11.7, just under 40%. He is the most chalky on FanDuel as well at over 30. And then on Yahoo, as he should be. I mean, this is a stone cold lock for like a cash game or something like that. He's just under 60% ownership on Yahoo right now. $47. He shouldn't ever be $47, especially against a team that is striking out as much as anyone versus righties on the season. So don't worry. Just play Bauer on Yahoo, I think. Tournaments, cash games, if you can get to him, he would be the guy I would get to because there's really not much around him, and he's just priced $10, $13 too cheap for this matchup. Do you think you get to 40% ownership on DraftKings here? I know you probably haven't started crunching or anything yet, but that does seem a little bit high for a pitcher that's almost at 12K.
Yeah, it's really interesting on DraftKings because, he's really expensive, but I'd still rather spend 11.7 on Bauer than 11.2 on Miley or 10.6 on Gonzalez. So I think I'll still get there, but $1,600 more expensive than Kyle Gibson against the White Sox, even though Gibson is also overpriced. You can use that $1,600 in some lineups. Brendan McKay, I assume, will be my most popular pitcher or my highest exposed pitcher. 40% seems reasonable. I think I'd be kind of surprised if I get to more than that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get to more than that. There are some good bats too on this slate. It's not like It's just bad pitchers and cheap bats. There are some expensive bats in Houston, and Minnesota is priced up a little bit. You've got Arizona with a nice total as well, and then the Angels and Rangers game, it's 100 degrees in Texas, and some expensive bats there. So I usually lean towards the bats here. I'd love to get to as much Bauer as I could, but right now I see myself paying up a little bit more for bats if the field is going to be at almost 40% of a 12K pitcher, because it just, you talk about it all the time too, it just locks you into a certain lineup construction. Even if you spend down with that second pitcher spot, you're just limited to a different number of teams, whereas if you go heavy on a guy like McKay, that just opens up your options so much more.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned it being a good spot for Bauer too. 6 righties in the projected lineup, and while Bauer has had some struggles this year, they haven't come against right-handed hitters. He struck out 30.5%, 287 expected WOBA. So, I think it is a really good matchup. But like you had just said, from a roster construction standpoint, even if there's, some good value bats and you can get Bauer plus, some other SP2 and get to, get some, exposure to good lineups or good stacks, you're still using the same value guys to get there that everyone else is using. So it just paints you into a corner where, kind of like we talked about with the live final, you're going to get some really high projected lineups doing that. Mm-hmm. And on some slates, it'll work out. But even on the slates where it works out, then you have to basically just hope that you run really good and get to the top of all of those lineups that did the same thing. Whereas you can put yourself in a position to win, to get first place easier if you take a different approach to roster construction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. All right, so talked about pitching in this game. Well, we talked about one side, the more important side. Any interest in Lauer, and then any bats outside of Suarez that really stick out to you in this game?
Not interested in Lauer at that price tag. Park downgrade for him going into Cincinnati. I do like the Reds, though. I think that they're affordable. Lauer kind of has reverse splits, but it's more of like he's not good against anyone than he's good against either side. Against righties, he has a 22% strikeout percentage this year, 303 expected WOBA, 160 expected ISO. To lefties, a 10% strikeout percentage, 339 expected WOBA, 168 expected ISO. So I still like the price tag on Nick Senzel. I love Eugenio Suarez. Aquino's gotten expensive, but he clearly has the power to be worth it. But then you get some value with guys like Jose Peraza and Phil Irvin in there from the right side as well. Josh Van Meter's cheap in a lefty-lefty matchup where he maybe goes overlooked, even though Lauer isn't great against lefties. So I think Cincinnati is actually a pretty interesting stack because they're not really expensive and they are in a good park.
Yeah, and actually Aquino right now, one of the least owned guys, at least on DraftKings. So I'm actually more likely to pay up for Aquino here. You pay up for the massive power bat when they're low owned rather than when everyone's playing him because he's homering every game and he's right. 3,800. Like, it's just one of those annoying things because he gets filtered out of the lineups, as Cheap Chalk does oftentimes. But priced up here, I think I do like, especially Aquino and Suarez, but I think I will get to some Reds as well, looking at least on DraftKings here. On Yahoo, I haven't taken a long look at their pricing, but Aquino and Suarez both $27 and $22, then everyone else is cheap in this Reds lineup. So they're a viable stack over there as well, especially if you're looking to pay up for two pitchers like Bauer and someone else in the 40-plus range. All right. Did you like any bats against Bauer at all as leverage?
On DraftKings, I think that 3,800 for Machado is reasonable, just a good hitter in a good park. Josh Naylor at 3,800 is okay. Mejia, assuming he's behind the plate. It's not a spot that I want to get to a lot, but it is at least worth pointing out that the game is in Cincinnati. The Padres do have a 4 implied run total, which, while it's not high, obviously, it's still higher than I expected it to be. So there are at least some options if you're looking for leverage against Bauer.
Yep, I like it. All right, let's go to Seattle and Tampa Bay. We've got Marco Gonzalez going up against Brendan McKay. McKay, one of the chalkier pitchers on the board, and for good reason. You've got a 3.7 implied total here for the Mariners, almost 5 going to Tampa Bay, 4.9. McKay, one of the biggest favorites on the board, minus 178. At this moment, you talked about McKay being possibly your highest exposed pitcher on the slate. Are you worried about the chalk at all here?
Not really, just because everyone else is so expensive that I think McKay is just clearly like the number one point per dollar guy. You're point per dollar plus upside guy. So I'm fine just getting a lot of him and then being different elsewhere in my lineups. He's in a good park. He's in a good strikeout matchup. He has good stuff. He's had kind of mixed results in the majors so far overall, but the stuff's clearly playing up. He has a 27.5% strikeout percentage, 3.9 Sierra, 6.2 walk percentage, and that took a big jump after his last start where he walked like 5 or 6 guys against the Padres. He's getting swings and misses. His plate discipline numbers look good. So I've been really impressed with his underlying numbers overall, and the strikeout stuff's there. And then you get this matchup in Tampa Bay. It's just it would be one thing if you had 2 or 3 pitchers where you looked and you were like, yeah, they're really high upside options at their price too. But when you look at the guys priced around him and It's Eric Lauer in Cincinnati. It's Joe Ross against Pittsburgh. Ivan Nova against the Twins. Dakota Hudson against the Brewers. I'm gonna just get tons of Brendan McKay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see any way around that. He's a fantastic option on all sites, getting ownership on all sites as he should. 7,500 on FanDuel, $35 on Yahoo as well. Like, he's just got the best combination of upside, safety with this park, probably the best pitcher's park on the slate. Yeah, we don't have a San Francisco game tonight, so one of the better spots just all around. A 27% K rate guy in a favorable matchup against Seattle, who strikes out a bunch versus lefties. So I don't really see any way around getting to McKay. I would guess right now he's going to be my highest exposed pitcher, unless we get a really weird projection from Alex for whatever reason. Going to have a ton of him here. So I'm also not worried about the chalk. Marco Gonzalez is 10-6. I don't know what to do with that. Is it just the park? Why is he getting up to 10-6 here? You can't get Sonny Gray to 9-8. Gonzalez at 10-6. What's going on?
I have no idea. The park's obviously good, but it's still a pitcher that doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He has a 17.7% strikeout percentage this year, and he is $10,600. 4.92 Sierra. I mean, for Marco Gonzalez to be worth this price tag, he basically has to throw like a complete game shutout or have the best strikeout game that he has ever had or will ever have. I don't anticipate either of those things happening, so it's not even a spot where I see myself, looking to pay up to be contrarian. I think I'll just forget that Marco Gonzalez exists.
Yeah, if he was 9K, I think I would maybe think about it, just because there's not a lot of options in that range. But 10-6, when you can pay a little bit more for Bauer or just go to the other side, McKay, it's not even like he's a big favorite and just a low strikeout guy. He's a big dog, plus 164. Right. And that total for Tampa Bay is pretty telling in that park as far as what people think of Marco Gonzalez. So no reason for me to get there on DraftKings. If you had to pick a leverage bet or two against McKay, first of all, is that something you're interested in? And then who would it be?
Not overly interested, but Tommy Murphy at catcher, has power. He's a catcher. Tim Lopez probably leading off and sub 3K. So I'd look to those guys. And yeah, back to the Gonzalez point, I'm sure we're, talking him into a great game now, but I think he's the worst of the 10K options on DraftKings. Miley faces Detroit. I'm also not paying 11-2 for Miley, but Miley faces Detroit. Kyle Gibson is the guy other than Bauer that I actually want. Gonzalez is, I think, worse than all three of those guys. I think he's worse than Zach Gallen as well.
Yeah, Gonzalez, no reason to get there. No bats getting a lot of ownership here. Let's see. I think Pham was the only one. Yeah, Pham was at 8% on the first round of ownership. Darno getting a few percent, but that's just more price plays. So against Marco, I think some of these rays do make some sense. Yeah, I don't really think I'm going to get to anyone outside of Domingo Santana. Grades favorably in Alex's projections a lot of the time, so maybe I get to a couple shares of him in one-offs, but it's going to be just a ton of McKay and probably not too much else in this game for me. Milwaukee and St. Louis. We've got a 4.6 implied total here for the Brewers, 5 flat for the Cardinals. Zach Davies and Dakota Hudson. Hudson in this category of overpriced pitchers, 8.6 for him. Do you just want to write that off? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough spot against Milwaukee. Lots of good lefties in this lineup, and Hudson this year, he's done a really good job he doesn't strike anyone out, but he's done a good job at limiting production from righties with a 313 xWOBA and 122 x ISO. But against lefties, he's at 393 and 197. It's hot in St. Louis. I lived there for a while. When it gets hot, the ball, it gets humid, the ball carries. It's kind of similar to the Baltimore and DC area during the summer. So, Trent Grisham, I think, is a great value again. Grandal, Yelich, Moustakas, Thames, give me all those guys.
Oh, okay. So you like the Brewers stack. Nice.
Yep.
Grisham, 3,500 leading off. That's going to be a super popular option, I would have to imagine. I didn't see him maybe I overlooked him in the first update, or maybe we didn't have him in there. But let me see if I can find him. He is just 15% right now. That's actually not too bad. Brewers looking like they're moderately owned. Some guys in the 10% range, at least on DraftKings. But Grisham, like, it just seems like so logical. If everyone's playing Bauer, he would be a guy that people jam in or put in their optimizer. Like, he's the optimizer play at 3,500 if he's leading off against Hudson. So I would imagine his ownership goes up, but gotta love Yelich at 5,700, whereas he's going to be like an anti-optimizer play if people are spending up for Bauer and the McKay pairing. So I do like some Brewers. I don't know if I'm crazy about the stack. Zach Davies is $4,200. So DK pricing just all over the place today, I guess. He threw 90 pitches in his last outing. So you don't really have to worry about him being fully stretched out here, but do you like him here for 4,200 against St. Louis?
I don't like him, but I'll get there. He's 4,200. He's fully stretched out, like you said. The other options down there are Jorge Lopez, who's not fully stretched out, Kyle Freeland in a tough strikeout spot, who's still $1,100 more. Edwin Jackson against Houston. Just getting a $4,200 pitcher, it's so difficult for them to really let you down. I don't think Zach Davies is good. He's certainly not good for DFS. Not a high strikeout guy. Has a 14.9% strikeout percentage and a 5.5 SIERA this year. I think that there's obviously merit to getting to the Cardinals because Davies will have ownership here. But at the same time, I'm going to be using him in some lineups where I'm contrarian elsewhere just because of what he allows me to get from a hitter standpoint.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get to some Davies. Like, he's getting ownership right now, which you understand why, because he's 4,200 and stretched out. I was looking to see where his ground ball rate is this season. It's not that great, 40%. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to play both sides of this, to be honest. There's value on both sides, especially with some of these Cardinals. You got DeJong for 4,100, who I like quite a bit. Dexter Fowler, if he's leading off, is 3,900. Edman, 41. Goldschmidt, 41. So Cardinals a nice value stack with some added leverage. There's going to be ownership on both sides here, but I kind of understand it. And then Carpenter, I didn't even notice him, 3,800. That is quite the favorable price. And has he been batting sixth, or has he been leading off?
They dropped him down. He's been I think he was actually seventh the other day.
Oh, that's weird. Is he having a bad season?
Yeah, he's terrible.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's having a terrible season. I don't think that it's anything that should stop us from rostering him.
Makes sense. We just got projections on the site, and without giving too much away, as you can imagine, not a lot of great values up at the top for pitching, but not as favorable of a projection as I would have thought for Bauer. So I wonder if that comes up. Nothing really sticking out all too much. Do we have McKay in there? I don't think we have. Yeah, we don't have McKay in the projection, so Alex...
I'll say if we do, he's way too low.
Yeah. So Alex is going to, I'm sure, fix that in the next few minutes. But, the Bauer one is really sticking out to me. I thought he would grade out as at least a decent value, maybe not the 2x threshold that you're looking at on DraftKings, but quite a bit below that right now, and then similar for guys like Gibson and Miley. Anything more on the Cardinals and Brewers game?
Nope. So I guess with Davies, obviously not talking about him on FanDuel, but even on Yahoo at $29, I don't think you need to get there because Bauer is so much cheaper than he is on DraftKings, and McKay is really inexpensive. So I think it's really just a DraftKings specific SP2.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. All right, let's go to this one. Should be a fun game. The Angels and the Texas Rangers. We've got Dylan Peters going up against Colby Allard. 9K for Peters, 9,600 for Allard. Are either of these guys on the table for you here? 5.7 implied total for the Angels, 5.4 for the Rangers in 100-degree Texas weather.
No, there's just no reason for me to get there. On DraftKings, they're expensive, and I don't see the need. On Yahoo, they're not as expensive, but all the pitching is more favorably priced. And then on FanDuel, you only roster one. So Kobe Allard and Dylan Peters certainly aren't at the top of the list.
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting either of these guys. One guy who you might have heard of, Mike Trout, has a massive projection today, highest projected hitter, as he should be on most slates. Do you like the Angels here against Allard? Or what do you think of Allard overall, I guess?
I think that he's an interesting prospect. Like I think he could definitely be good. Right now, I expect him to be inconsistent. He's still really young. He's kind of had mixed results, especially as far as strikeouts go. So he's not someone that, especially in these hitting conditions, I'm going to shy away from targeting. I had him when he was really cheap the other day, again, and he was facing like Milwaukee, and Milwaukee was really popular. I rostered him some, but in a spot like this, I'm fine just taking the hitters against him.
Yeah, the Angels right now, one of my favorite stacks. A lot of people don't like playing lefty-lefty, so I'm guessing Ohtani's going to go pretty under-owned, as he does basically whenever they face a lefty. The Angels are never a fun team. Like when you look at the lineup, stacking up Pujols and Calhoun, lefty-lefty, Rengifo, Stassi, Tovar, but it seems like they're always a team I get to, and I wonder if that's just because of I'm getting to Trout. Like Trout's just grades out as a good value and oftentimes under-owned. And then these guys just get thrown in 2 and 3 man stacks. Do you feel that same way?
Yeah, and also whenever Max Stassi's in the lineup at 2K flat on DraftKings, he's like automatically the top point per dollar catcher, even though he's not good. It's just a 2K guy. So you get a top point per dollar option in Trout. Upton's usually a really good point per dollar option, Stassi, and then you kind of just fill it out with the other guys.
Yeah, I guess the only thing annoying that we talk about with the Angels is just the amount of outfielders they have. They usually have 4 in their lineup with Calhoun, Ohtani, Upton, and of course Trout. So it gets a little bit difficult from a lineup construction standpoint, especially if you're talking about DraftKings, Yahoo, and FanDuel. What about the Rangers here against Dylan Peters? You're getting some favorable pricing here. Only actually 2 players above 5K here in Santana and Hunter Pence, oddly enough. But the rest of this lineup looks pretty affordable for one of the better totals on the slate at 5.4. What do you think about them against Peters?
Yeah, I hate when the Rangers face a mediocre to bad lefty in Texas because I think they're a good stack, but when you go through individually and try and point out which hitters you want, it's really, really difficult. Like if you go to the start of last season against left-handed pitching, Danny Santana, only 117 plate appearances, has a 120 WRC plus, but also has a 34% strikeout percentage. So pretty good chance that his numbers come down over a bigger sample. And other than that, Pence is slightly above average. Odor's been slightly above average. It's just a lot of guys that don't grade out really, really well in the matchup, but it's still great hitting conditions. A lot of favorable pricing with Chu at 4,400, Andrus at 43. So I'll get there, in full stacks. I don't know that I'll get to a lot of one-offs from Texas because they just aren't. I don't think they're quite as good individually as some other hitters.
All right, so just circling back to the Angels quick, we just got another ownership update. And they have 4 players right now on DraftKings that are 20% or more. I did not see that coming. I mean, a nice total, 5.7, but it's not like they're far and away the best. They're not even the best total, or even top 3, I don't think. So kind of weird that all these guys are super popular. I get the weather and all that. Alex has them at 6.2 actually, but his totals are usually a little bit higher. Does that change your mind at all on the Angels? Do they look less appealing? I mean, somewhat, but is this a team you might get underweight on now?
Yeah, I mean, if they stay as like the highest owned team, I imagine I just get more Milwaukee, more Houston, more Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense for them to be the highest or one of the highest owned teams, though, because they have one of the highest totals. But like if you look at the Astros, how are you getting Trevor Bauer in there with a full Astro stack? The same really goes with the Twins. Whereas with the Angels, you use $2,000 Stassi, you use $3,900 David Fletcher. You can get Trout in there, and then you can still get to Bauer.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess Stassi's going to bring that up. Fletcher, of course. If he's leading off 3,900, that's going to be tough to pass up on dual position eligibility. So they actually are a little bit more stackable than I imagine, especially when you get the 2K catcher in there. So makes a little bit of sense. But, man, I just thought that I was going to get a ton of Angels and they wouldn't be the chalkiest stack. But right now they look like it without having the aggregate numbers in front of me.
So if you click Trevor Bauer, Brendan McKay, and Mike Trout as the first 3 on DraftKings, you still have 3,600 to spend per position. So then you put in Max Stassi at 2K, now you're up to 3,866, And it's pretty easy. You fill out the rest of that Angel stack. You grab, like a Trent Grisham value play or something. Just the first name that came to mind that was cheap. And you've got a really highly projected lineup.
Okay. I see why we don't have McKay in there right now. We got Richards in there. I think Alex is the guy from yesterday. Like, did Richards go yesterday?
Yeah, Richards pitched yesterday.
Yeah, okay. So that'll get cleaned up here. But if you put in Trout, Richards will put in for right now $500 less. And then you say Trout, $3,600. Oh wait,
yeah.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so like right now, if I just clicked in like an Angel stack that has Fletcher, Trout, Upton, Rengifo, Stassi with Bauer, McKay, you still have $3,866 per position. So then you put in someone like Trent Grisham, and now you're up over $4K for your shortstop and first baseman. It's just gonna be really, really easy to get lineups like that. So I do expect the Angels to be really popular.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. Walking through it a little bit more. Any other players you want to talk about here? We've also got two 2K catchers here. 2K Jeff Mathis, 2K Max Stassi. So not the best options, but guys that always get ownership when they're going to be min salary catchers. Anyone else you want to talk about here before we move on?
Stassi over Mathis for sure.
But, anyone over Mathis, right?
Yeah, yeah. But other than that, no.
All right, let's go to Detroit and Houston. Detroit with a 3.8 implied total on Alex's rankings here. 6.6 for Houston. Edwin Jackson going up against Wade Miley here. Houston, the highest total on the board right now, highest implied total on the board, but they are super expensive to stack, at least looking at DraftKings. Where does Houston rank for you against Edwin Jackson?
Yeah, I think their salaries should keep their ownership down, at least as far as a full stack goes. Maybe you'll see high ownership individually on someone like Bregman with multi-position eligibility or something like that. But it's just going to be so hard to full stack this team that I am really interested in trying to get there in tournaments. You really have to do something like McKay plus Davies or something like that, which isn't appealing, but to the world. And you're getting to one of the best spots on the slate. Edwin Jackson has been okay by his standards recently, but still not shying away from all the power on Houston. Plus, you get a bad bullpen behind him. There's a reason that the Astros have a 6.5 implied run total right now. You do get a couple of decent values too with Chirinos and probably Josh Reddick in the lineup. So it's not like you have to be paying 5K plus for all 5 hitters in your stack, but you certainly can, and doing so will make you contrarian just because it's not going to be preferred by optimizers.
I think Houston is pretty much a lock when the top stack tool comes out, if it's not out already, that they're going to be under-owned relative to their top stack percentage, at least on DraftKings. When you look at this pricing, I would guess the same on Yahoo. I think they're still priced way up when I took a peek. So
yeah, they are.
Yeah, so it's nearly like it's almost impossible to get to a 6-man Astro stack on Yahoo. You're probably gonna have to go to 5 or even 4 mans. So that makes them a little bit less appealing because you'd like to stack the max that you could. But you could probably still get to 4 and 5 mans on Yahoo. I hope, like I said, the Angels earlier, that I thought they might be my highest exposed stack. I hope that I get to Houston the most because I think they're going to have the best chance of being the top stack, and they're not going to be owned like they are because of their pricing. So this is another one where you're going to have to probably manipulate your hitter scoring if you want to get Houston in an optimizer like Fantasy Cruncher. But that's not something a lot of people do. So they're going to be under-owned as a full stack. And like you mentioned, looking at their ownership right now, you're getting some ownership on Bregman, Springer, and then Chirinos as well, but that's more for salary relief. But like the rest of these guys aren't going to be super popular. And if you have, sub 10% on, let's see, 3, 4, 5 of their hitters right now, the full stack is not going to be nearly owned as much as it should be. So I'm looking forward to a bunch of Houston. I hope their ownership stays really low, and I hope I get a ton of them.
Yeah, so I hope I get there. I generally do what I can to prioritize teams like that, so hopefully it works out that way.
Yeah. I love it, man. Looking forward to it. And Edwin Jackson, is he the worst pitcher on the slate, you think? Gotta be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chichi Gonzalez, I don't know what you think of him. The rest of these guys actually aren't terrible in Jackson.
Yeah, it's a bunch of just like unappealing DFS pitchers that are below average but not terrible.
Let's see. Jackson actually hasn't been that bad last two starts, but this is like the worst spot possible. Outside of it just being righty-righty for a lot of these matchups, like
he has the worst Sierra. He's at 5.53. Davies right there at 5.49. Nova's at 5.14, Williams at 5.04, Freeland at 5.12, Ross at 5.24, Means at 5.04. Everyone else is below 5.
Looking at the other side here, Wade Miley, 11-2. He is another one that's very overpriced. I actually thought he was getting quite a bit of ownership. Yeah, he was in the mid-teens right now. Is that a wide enough gap between him and Bauer to consider getting a bunch of Miley ownership here for you?
I don't think so. And more so than Bauer, it's that we have him at 15%. We have Kyle Gibson at 20%, and Gibson's $1,100 less on DraftKings. I have in my early stuff, I have Gibson and Miley projected almost identically. So if they're going to get comparable ownership, and I'm going to have to pay more money for Miley, I'm going to just give preference to Kyle Gibson.
Yeah, Gibson, higher K rate, lower walk rate. Let's see, looking at their XFIPs, Gibson better in that area. I mean, he's just better in a lot of areas, cheaper. And yeah, he's not a massive favorite like Miley is. So maybe the win equity a little bit lower here for Gibson, but he's still a minus 200 favorite. So I like the call there. Like, if they're going to be similar in ownership, give me Gibson all day. I'll take the cheaper, overpriced pitcher, if that makes sense, and the one that I think is better. Yep. Even against Detroit, Miley going to see a bunch of righties. Are there any righties here for Detroit you want to target?
I don't think so. I mean, the only ones that, like, Duel Lugo's super cheap, but he's a third baseman, and we actually have a lot of good value at third base today with Moustakas, with Suarez, with even Bregman, even though he's expensive. I think he's a quality value option. Nolan Arenado's really cheap. So I don't think third base is a position where I really want to be punting. Miguel Cabrera at first base is cheap, but he's probably going to just single like 3 times. Nico Goodrum has some pop, but it's still Nico Goodrum. I don't know. I don't really see a reason to be seeking out Tigers bats.
I don't think so either. Goodrum was actually the one guy that I was thinking I might get to. Outfield shortstop eligible and cheap, maybe batting cleanup. Maybe you get a little leverage on Miley, but more as a one-off. Tigers, very unappealing even if you're not getting to Miley. Let's go to the White Sox and the Twins. We've got a 3.9 implied total here for Ivan Nova and the White Sox, 5.7 for Gibson. And the Twins, actually 6 Alex has them at. Gibson, 10-1. We just talked about him a little bit, but just talk about why you'd rather have him than Miley, or, where does he rank in the Bauer-Miley tier?
Right. So I have him behind Bauer as far as projected points go, but on DraftKings, you're getting a $1,600 discount. On Yahoo, you're getting an $8 discount. And on FanDuel, you're getting, where is he? So he's 7,400 on FanDuel. I still... It's really interesting on FanDuel. It'll come down to ownership, I think, between McKay and Gibson. They're basically the same price. They project very similarly for me as the top mid-range pitcher. But you're getting, a almost $3,000 discount off of Bauer. So it's a nice matchup against the White Sox. It would be better if there were a couple more righties in the lineup, but he's, still been okay against lefties. 21% strikeout percentage, 161 expected ISO, 337 expected WOBA. Against righties, he has a 24.5% strikeout percentage. So you do prefer it if there's more righties in the lineup, but tons of strikeouts for the White Sox. Gibson, just a pretty decent pitcher, has a 22.6% strikeout percentage overall. 4.29 Sierra is one of the better marks on the slate. It looks like it's like 4th best among guys who have made a reasonable number of starts. So, I think that he's, like you said, he's overpriced on DraftKings, but he's less overpriced than Miley or Gonzalez. And on FanDuel and Yahoo, he's very reasonably priced.
Yeah, FanDuel and Yahoo, fantastic play, $39 on Yahoo. FanDuel, you mentioned 7-4, so possibly a nice pivot off of McKay if he becomes the guy that everyone flocks to in that range. Yeah, I mean, nothing really bad to say about Gibson here. probably going to face a bunch of fringe major leaguers at the bottom of this order for the White Sox. And there's not a lot of guys I want to target against him. Like, some of their best hitters, Abreu, and at least power hitters, Jimenez, McCann, are all from the right side. So this is kind of playing right into Gibson's hands. So, 10-1 on DraftKings is going to be difficult, but I would rather have a ton more Gibson than Miley if you just look at K percentage and price here. And, both big favorites. Miley, obviously a huge one, but I think the gap is there for me to get to more Gibson. Twins bats against Ivan Nova. You like them?
Yeah, their pricing is really affordable too. A lot will come down to what the lineup looks like. It looks like Kepler and Cruz both are questionable for this one. Obviously, you would like both of those bats in there. Nova's not a good strikeout pitcher, but he also doesn't give up tons of power. He's allowed about a 160 expected ISO to righties, 170 to lefties. So you can get to him, but he's not a total gas can like people tend to make him out to be. That being said, though, obviously you have tons of power in the Minnesota lineup. Nova's not going to miss bats. The Twins just have a lot of really good hitters. So I do like Minnesota. I think I would put them behind Houston. And then, I would rank them similarly to the guys, to teams in the Texas game and, to like the Brewers.
What do you think Luis Arias' batting average is this season? I watch a lot of Twins games because my friends are all Twins fans. And they talk about him being the best player ever because they always cite his batting average. What do you think it is?
340?
342 right now. So this guy, according to some, is just the greatest player of all time. He's not that good of a hitter, is he really?
He's a good hitter. He's not a good power hitter.
Yeah, okay. 342 is outrageous.
I don't remember who it was. Someone tweeted the other day and was like, are we really just going to ignore that Luis Arias is Willians Astudillo in a different uniform? And it is pretty crazy that the Twins have two guys. Arias walks and strikes out more than Astudillo does, but 7% strikeout percentage, 10% walk percentage, whereas Astudillo is at like 1% of both. But yeah, I mean, he's a good hitter, I think. He's just not a power guy.
He's like the perfect guy to play in a stack because, he's going to rack up points with, hopefully hits and runs and RBIs, but he's never like a one-off target. So especially for $42, but they just constantly are talking about his batting average on the Twins broadcast. I just can't stand it.
If he played from if his career ranged from 1980 to 1993, he would be like a household name for all of us growing up. Like we would have been told how great he was.
He would be inducted to the Hall of Fame this season. Right. But yeah, I mean the Twins they're up there for me, not quite to where Houston's at, but I think a pretty good spot for Minnesota. You're getting some discounts on guys like Polanco, especially $4,400, Rosario $4,800. Those guys are $13 and $18 on Yahoo as well. And then the bottom of this lineup, they do have power and platoon splits with guys like Castro and Cave at positions you might need to save a few dollars on. Do you want to mention any White Sox bats here against Gibson?
No, not really. The power guys that we normally go to are expensive enough where I don't even think they're that great of a play. Like Jimenez is at 3,900, Anderson's up to 46, Abreu's at 43. Those are the guys that normally I'll throw into some lineups just because of the upside, but not even sure it's worth it here.
Yeah.
Also, that the total for both sides of that game dropped a bunch as we were talking.
In the Minnesota game?
Yeah.
Let's see.
The White Sox, I think when we started the show, it was like 6 for the Twins and 4.2 for the White Sox. Now I'm seeing it at 5.7 and 3.9.
Yeah, I see that as well. Maybe something to do with, I don't know, the wind direction, a little bit of wind, and I'm sure the temperature is going to be, less than what they thought it was going to be maybe last night or something. But
meanwhile, the Astros went up even more.
Yeah, I just noticed that as well. Wow. So they might be over 7 in Alex's totals by the time we get to lock here, and hopefully still under-owned. All right, before we get to the last game, if you guys could hit the like button, that would be great. Let's see, we got 51 right now. That's pretty good. I see some people in YouTube chat asking for likes for me, so I don't have to do it, but going to ask you regardless. It does help us out. It does help us continue to offer free content like this. Let's go to Colorado and Arizona. We've got a 4.8 implied total here for the Rockies, 5.9 for Arizona. Chichi Gonzalez going up against Zach Gallen. I think Gallen's pretty interesting here. I mean, another overpriced pitcher, but 9,300 against Colorado. Hopefully we get this roof closed because it's 107 degrees in Arizona. You have any interest in Gallen?
Yeah, I have a lot of interest in Gallen. I think that he's a little bit overpriced, but he's still cheaper than Gibson and cheaper than Miley. And I have right now all three of those guys projected similarly. So he's the least overpriced of the group. We know that Colorado is not good away from Coors Field, as you would expect. I assume the roof's going to be closed in Chase Field because it's 110 degrees. That makes it, a pretty clear pitcher's park. It's been a bottom 10 park for hitters this year as far as runs go. So a nice spot for Gallen. He's, I think, been a good pitcher this year. I still can't believe the Marlins traded him, but he has a 27.5% strikeout percentage. The walk percentage is high at 11.5%, but in the minors, he never really struggled with walks. So I expect that to drop a little bit. He's got, pretty good swinging strike stuff. I think that, he's not safe, but he's a pretty strong option on this slate.
Can't imagine how much the city of Miami hates Derek Jeter. Like the guy comes in preaching about how he's not rebuilding and all that stuff. Trades away Stanton. Now it's trading away their best young pitcher.
I mean, you're not rebuilding if you're trading away your pitching prospects.
But trading them away for like cash and stuff. Like it's just.
I mean, they got another prospect, but it was weird.
It's just every time the Marlins have something good, they want to deal it away, no matter who their ownership is these last few years. So
I'll say it's tough to replace Jeffrey Loria and then still be a laughingstock.
Yeah. Jeter's doing a pretty stand-up job with that. All right, so Arizona, right now, I think that they're going to go like kind of ignored for me outside of David Peralta at 4,200. Can you put them in that same tier as like Minnesota and Texas and the Angels tonight?
Yeah, I think so because they're really affordable. If Ketel Marte's in the lineup, he's the only guy on DraftKings over 5K, and he's obviously a good hitter. But David Peralta stands out as a really good value. Jake Lamb's really cheap. Josh Rojas is still really affordable. So I think they're a team where they're not going to be the highest probability on the slate, but they're going to be high enough that given their value, they're going to get into a lot of lineups for me, especially if like all that ownership's going to go to the Angels.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I just feel like I never get to Arizona whenever they have these good totals all the time, and I just don't find myself there. I'm always flocking to like the chalkier teams. So I want to take a look at where this game's at just for total ownership, because this is one I kind of forgot was on the slate, but it is the late night hammer. Rojas, the only one at 3,100 on DraftKings who's getting a lot of ownership. Outside of that, I mean, you're getting some pretty reasonable ownerships for like Escobar, Walker, Peralta. Peralta at only 11%. If he's projected to bat second for 42, that seems a little bit weird to me. But maybe there's just a ton of outfield options. Kind of hard to parse that out when you're going game by game. But I do like Peralta quite a bit for 4,200. So.
Yeah, and don't sleep on Carson Kelly. He never really projects that well for me. He's someone that kind of goes overlooked in my stuff because he's never been like, he was a prospect for the Cardinals, but he's never been like a great hitter. But he has a 274 ISO, 115 WRC plus this year. Seems like he's maybe figured something out as far as hitting for power goes, and he just never has ownership because he's not really cheap and he's batting at the bottom of the order.
Yeah, man, he's been raking. Feels like he's always overpriced, but kind of warranted, I guess. So probably if I do get to Arizona, wouldn't be a guy I would mind getting to now that he's quote unquote priced down for $4,300. I think he got up to 5K there for about a week straight.
Yep.
All right. Before we send it off here, we're still doing this NFL giveaway until tomorrow, I believe. You must reply to this tweet. That's the pinned tweet on the Osmo_com Twitter account. You have to follow the account. You have to follow Osmo NFL as well. You basically just reply, retweet, follow, and the reply is just something about a player in Osmo's NFL season-long rankings and projections. So you've got some examples down here. It could be whatever you want. Just reply to that tweet, and this is the biggest giveaway we've had. $500 of prizes. You can win a free month of Awesemo Plus, or if you're a premium member, you can win a 30-minute coaching session with Alex Awesemo Baker himself. So no reason not to do it. A ton of you guys have already done it, but this is basically your last shot until midnight tonight, and the winners will be announced tomorrow at noon Eastern, it looks like. So go do that. Adam will have the deep dive out. He's going to be a busy man today. Strategy show in the morning, deep dive, covering for Laffy, of course, while he does some adult things. And then he'll be back on the deeper dive with Alex and Spags, I believe. I made the schedule, and I still don't even know what's going on this week. When one person
I don't know. I just show up where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there.
Exactly. Just check out that schedule. I think it's in the email blast, possibly the correct schedule, but there will be a deeper dive today. There will be a live before lock, Josh and myself. So yeah, that would put Spags on the deeper dive. You'll be seeing a lot of our faces all week. Me, Adam, Spags, and Josh as Laffy is gone. So it'll be a good one, man. Anything more before we send it out of here?
No, I think that's it. Hopefully I have some good takes today because you're going to be getting lots of them.
All right. Good luck tonight, guys. See you later.